All right. Good morning, family.
Good morning.
Morning.
All right. So we're in Psalm
Good morning.
82. Praise
Psalm
God.
82.
Psalm 82. Wow.
Psalm 82.
Yes. Psalm 82, a psalm of Asaph.
Psalm 84.
No, Psalm 82, Sister Coney.
82. I got it. Okay.
Okay. God has taken his place in the divine council.
Right.
In the midst of the gods, he holds judgment. How long will you judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? Selah. Give justice to the weak and the fatherless. Maintain the right of the afflicted and the destitute. Rescue the weak and the needy.
Yeah.
Deliver them from the hand of the wicked. They have neither knowledge nor understanding. They walk about in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are shaken. I said, you are gods, sons of the Most High, all of you. Nevertheless, like men, you shall die and fall like any prince. Arise, O God, judge the earth, for you shall inherit all the nations.
Right.
Amen.
Amen.
All right. A psalm of Asaph. Okay. We're going to have some fun learning this morning.
All right.
Yes. Couple of things I want to point out right off the top is in the first verse where it says, God has taken his place in divine counsel. In the midst of the gods, he holds judgment.
Right.
Here, he's not talking about like polytheism. He's not talking about that there's God and then there's a lot of demigods.
Right.
There. And it's in your handout, but the word Elohim is used here. And in the Old Testament, the word Elohim, when it's used, the Hebrew word for God, it's used more than other words used for God. It's used over 2,300 times when it's referencing God.
Okay.
The Almighty God. But it's used about 240 times when it's referencing like God's little g.
Okay.
Which could be not gods at all, like gods that of other nations that aren't really gods at all.
Right.
And one of the other semantics that is used as is it's used 3 times as judge.
Okay.
Just to show you the wide semantics of the definitions, is used 1 time as a goddess.
Okay.
And 1 time as a ruler.
Okay.
So there's a lot of different meanings, but here it actually means judge. So
Right.
So you have God, Almighty God, has taken his place in the divine council. In the midst of the judges, he holds judgment.
Right.
And that's why the title of this sermon is actually, did I title it? God judges the judges, or God judges unjust judges.
Right.
Okay. Now, there's 2 realities shown here that is really important that we pay attention to. The one reality is, and we see it in verse 2, God is talking and he says, how long will you judge unjustly and
Right.
show partiality to the wicked? So the one reality is that these unjust judges are unjust. They're in the courtroom And they're showing partiality to the rich and the wicked, and they're thus oppressing the weak and the needy.
Right.
As a result. And so that's one reality.
Right.
But the other reality that the psalmist wants us to learn is that God is holding court.
Yeah.
At the time that they're doing this, God is holding court.
Right.
Two realities. And this is for the believer.
Right.
Right? I mean, we always have another reality.
Yes, sir. That's
God
right.
is always working behind the scenes.
Yes, sir.
And the psalmist wants his people to know. He wants his people to know, yes, these unjust things are going on, but that's to let you, when you see them, know that God is holding court.
Talk, man.
At the same time.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, that's our hope.
Right.
That's our hope. That God is holding court.
Right.
At the same time. And so God indicts them. He says, that's the indictment. He says, how long will you judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? There's the indictment.
Right.
They're in court and they're being indicted, these judges. And watch this, y'all. They don't even know it.
Uh-oh.
They think they're doing something.
Right.
I don't want to jump ahead of myself, but they think they're doing something when they make rulings and so that little girls can't even have privacy in the bathroom anymore. A little boy can go in there if he wants to, if he claims that's his gender.
Yeah.
Yes.
They think they did something.
Right.
When they did that. But what they did, what they actually did was indict themselves.
All right.
All right, Rev.
They indicted themselves.
Right.
They're in court. And the reason why they're in court, listen, is because God has given judges a divine authority.
Sure.
Think about it. A judge can rule whether you're going to live or die.
Right.
That's divine authority.
That's right.
Whether you going home to your family or you ain't going to never live with them in the same household again.
Right.
That's some life-changing stuff.
That's right, man.
That's some God-like stuff.
Yeah.
And what they don't understand is this divine authority has been given to them by God, and the very being that's given it to them, they actually defy him with their decisions.
Right.
And then he says, this is the purpose of judges in verse 3 and 4. He's going to give us 4 verbs.
Okay.
Give, maintain, rescue, deliver.
Look at that.
He says, give justice to the weak and the fatherless. Maintain the right of the afflicted and the destitute. Rescue the weak and the needy. Deliver them from the hand of the wicked. That is the reason why you're a judge.
My.
All right.
That's your purpose.
Right.
They've actually done the exact opposite of what their purpose is.
Right.
And so I love this, because in the midst of the psalmist revealing this greater reality to us and to his readers and to the people that are listening, in the midst of it, he actually gets angry.
Okay.
Right.
Verse 5, he says, they have neither knowledge nor understanding. He's talking about the judges. They walk about in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are shaken.
My Lord.
Now this is meant to stir up emotion
Right.
because he's angry. It's
Right.
meant to stir up emotion in the believer. They have neither knowledge nor understanding. They walk about in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are shaken. Let me open that up for you. So when God created Genesis chapter 1, it says that the earth was dark and void, and God spoke and said, let there be light. What God did, he brought order
Right.
to chaos. One of my favorite shows is Law and Order.
Okay.
And the idea is that order is equal to justice.
Okay.
And that to understand that God's attribute of being just, everything that God is, was poured into creation.
Right. Right. Right.
That he brought order and balance. Justice is balance. This is what he's talking about. He's saying you give justice, you give balance to the weak and the fatherless.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So that there could be some equity, some equality.
Right.
So when you're not doing that, when you who are the judges, when you are walking about in darkness, all the foundations of the earth are shaken. And let me just ask this, let me just bring this observation out. Darkness and earth. When you think about that, automatically, for me, it reminds me of creation.
Right.
And the order that God, and so these judges with this divine authority, they're actually shaking the foundational truths that God have created when he created in the beginning. I'm gonna tell you what I'm talking about. Let me drive down your street.
Okay.
God created male and female.
Right.
Right? There have been rulings that says that now you don't have to claim to be male or female.
Right.
That you don't have to claim any gender.
Right.
You're not gender specific. And so now you can go into any bathroom. You don't have to go into the men's bathroom. You go in the girls' bathroom.
Right.
So why is the foundation of the earth shaken by that? Because God created us male.
Right.
He made a significant difference, male and female.
Right.
Your ruling is challenging that foundational truth.
Right. 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 Right.
Y'all get that?
Yeah.
Watch this. The first institution was marriage between a who? Man and a woman.
Right.
Now, judges have ruled in almost every state now, you can get, if you're a man, you can marry another man. If you're a woman, you can marry another woman.
Right.
Not only that, y'all, God set up family in the beginning. He told them to be fruitful and multiply, right?
Right.
Set up family. Watch this. Adam and Eve, they had children.
Right.
Now, two men can have a child.
Right. Right. Right.
Not
They can adopt a child. They can
adopt a child.
That's right.
And raise it as if it's a normal family.
Right.
It's called the modern family.
Right. 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 Right.
My dad would look at that and say, he would say, the world is going to hell in a handbasket. That's what the psalmist is saying here. He's like, all the foundations of the earth are shaken.
Yeah.
Because of the authority that you've been given, judges, you can shake up foundational truths.
Right.
Yes, he's using a hyperbole, but he wants us to get excited about it. He wants us to be mad about it.
Right.
Those things that we know to be true have been challenged, and they've said they've actually created another reality and said this is another truth, which is a false reality.
Right.
We challenge the very things that are foundationally true.
Right.
I want to read something for you. A couple of things. This is I'm going to read an excerpt from an article. It's from a magazine. It's a digital magazine called Current Affairs.
Okay.
And it's talking about judging judges. It was written back in March of 2018. And it says, let's take an example from a recent Supreme Court case. A U.S. border guard standing on the U.S. side of the U.S.-Mexican border shot and killed a child who was on the Mexican side of the border. The lawyer for the child's family, in attempting to sue the border agent, argued that U.S. officials, when they kill people from inside the U.S., should be held liable. Now, it's already ridiculous that the lawyer's liability argument had to hinge on which side of the border the officer happened to be standing on, and not on the simple fact that a child was murdered, and that a person and the person who killed him should obviously be responsible for compensating the family. I rest my case. But it gets nuttier. The court asked the attorney, paraphrasing, well, what about drone pilots who sit in Nevada and murder people in Pakistan? Are you saying we should hold them liable? The lawyer, knowing that no court thinks drone pilots are liable for anything, knowing that if he says yes, they should also be liable, his client's case will be lost, felt forced to make an argument that, of course, drone pilots are different for some reason. In reality, of course, there is no substantive difference between a drone pilot who murders people from inside the U.S. and a border guard who murders people from inside the U.S. The lawyer knew this, and the court likely knew it too. Yet the court forced the lawyer to go through the exercise of attempting to draw an insincere distinction between the lawyer, making the lawyer look silly and further distancing the court from the actual important questions. Now, it's possible you might think that we're being unfair to judges here by expecting them to care about the same things, children being shot to death, poor people having their lives irreparably ruined by filing errors that lay people care about. The law is complicated, after all, and judges are legal experts. Isn't it natural that judges would care about the abstruse legal arguments that the rest of us can't see the relevance of? Because they understand the larger ramifications of each individual case for our great legal system. Without this far-seeing vision, wouldn't our entire civilization go down in flames? In other words, the foundations of the earth will be overturned. So my point is, these judges are making decisions that affect the way that we live.
Right, right.
God has a way that he wants us to live by his word. And these judges, because of their authority that they've been given, they're actually challenging the very one that gave them that authority. And so he's holding court on it.
Right.
And so this brings me to verse 6, where he says, God is talking again. He says, I said, you are gods, sons of the Most High, all of you. Nevertheless, like men, you shall die and fall like any prince. Couple of things here. One, he says, I said, I'm the one that appointed you. It is I that said that you are gods. I appointed you. Sons of the Most High, all of you. This is a high calling.
Right.
Nevertheless, that's not how you're going to die. You're not going to die with that. In other words, when judges are standing in line in heaven for their paycheck, ain't going to be no paycheck for you.
Right.
I fired you. I fired you. You are not. I appointed you. You're a judge, sons of the Most High, but that's not the honor that I'm going to give you.
Right.
You're going to die like I never appointed you. Get it? It's going to be like you were never sons of the Most High God.
Right.
Now, he doesn't tell us, what it looks like, what they're actually losing, but he says they're going to die like mere men.
Right.
And so they could have died another kind of way. He doesn't explain exactly how, but they're not going to get that. Get it?
Right.
They're not going to be honored like they would have because of the decisions that they made that got them fired. Let me give you a window to look through. John chapter 10. John chapter 10, verse 30. Jesus, he's talking and he says, I and the Father are one. Right?
Yeah.
He gets through with a discourse with the religious leaders, and he says, I and the Father are one. And they pick up stones to stone him to death, the scripture says, because he made himself equal to God. And Jesus, in his genius, he quotes from John, he quotes from Psalm 82:6.
Right.
He says, but doesn't it say in your law that you are gods?
Right.
He says, you guys are experts in the law. You guys are rulers and judges. Doesn't it say that you are gods? They can't argue with that, but here's what he's saying to them. He's saying it in the context of Psalm 82, where God is firing the gods, little g.
Right.
He's indicted them and he's sentenced them and he's firing them. What Jesus is saying to them in John chapter 10 is, I showed up to fire you.
Right.
You are fired.
Yeah.
You see that? He uses this song. He stumps their argument, because he's in fact saying you are gods too. But
Right.
he's also saying, if you read all of Psalm 82, God fired them.
Right.
Because of what they were doing. Because this is what you were supposed to be doing.
Right.
Religious leaders. You were supposed to give justice to the weak and the fatherless, maintain the right of the afflicted and the destitute, rescue the weak and the needy, deliver them from the hand of the wicked. And the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the Sanhedrin, they didn't do none of that.
Right. Right.
They weren't doing none of that. And let me give you an example. Had they done that, had they been doing those things, they would have been honored for those things. Let me ask you, does the scripture honor them for those things?
No.
It doesn't. They died like mere men. And so then the psalmist, he comes back and he intervenes in this great court drama. He intervenes and prays.
Okay.
Arise, O God,
Right.
judge the earth, for you shall inherit all the nations.
Right.
Arise, O God, judge the earth, for you shall inherit all the nations.
Right.
That's his prayer. Now, we know, and Pastor was just talking about this. I was amazed when he was saying this. Our blessed hope is that God is going to make all things right.
Right. Right.
He's going to make all things right. That's our blessed hope. But watch this. I want to talk about some of the things, some of the trials that changed our lives. I want us to talk about that.
Okay.
Because some decisions have empowered women, helped protect the environment, or guaranteed a person's right to expressions. But others have strengthened racist laws, enabled forced sterilization, and allowed unequal schooling.
Right. Right.
So there's a lot of different things. So let me ask you, what are some of the trials in history that you know about that shook the foundation of the earth? Let's think about this.
Roe versus Wade.
Roe versus Wade. Very good. Very good. Anybody else? Some of the other trials that changed our lives.
What was the one that Thurgood Marshall argued? I can't remember.
Hold on.
The Board of Education.
Brown versus the Board of Education
Yeah.
is one. Yeah.
Mhm.
What was that about?
This law said DACA. That's the dream. Yeah, this Immigration Act for the Immigration Act for what's the
LGBT.
dreamers, immigrants
Yeah.
that's born here, but they're not.
Yeah, that's right. That's what that is.
Mm-hmm. What about Dred Scott versus Stanford? That was in 1857. I looked up a few. Let me give you a couple of them. That's one of them, where the Supreme Court ruled that Americans of African descent, whether free or slave, were not American citizens and could not sue in federal court. The court also ruled that Congress lacked power to ban slavery in the United States territories. Finally, the court declared that the rights of slave owners were constitutionally protected by the Fifth Amendment because slaves were categorized as property.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Yes.
That's what a lot of people use nowadays. That's what the LGBTQ use. But that so many things are under that umbrella. Religious freedom, just a lot of freedoms are under that.
Mm-hmm. The 13th Amendment.
Yes.
It abolished slavery and involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime. So, in other words, you couldn't read or write, and you, of course, did not have any ID. You didn't have no identification, and so it was a crime not to have identification. So, Lincoln set you free, But all I got to do is stop you and ask you for ID, and I can put you right back on that same plantation.
Right.
Right back on that same plantation.
Right.
Yeah, so
You probably can add to that as a subcategory, just to this one is actually more intrinsic to the Constitution. Is Fourth Amendment deals with search and seizure and those type of things, and what is that? What is it? Let me look it up real quick. But it's the Fourth Amendment is oftentimes used in conjunction with police officers in the use of force law.
right.
So what is it? Does it say? I used to know this stuff by heart back in the days. I don't. Yeah, Fourth Amendment stands for principle that government generally may not search its people or seize their belongings without appropriate process and oversight. But that's right. So you can't. No, government can't just come in and seize stuff and get things like that. But then with the war on drugs and with the idea of kind of this sovereignty. Total sovereignty of police officers.
Right.
That's all about, kind of their whatever is considered logical or rational or reasonable. I think is
Right. Reasonable. Yeah.
legal term. And that it is, and there's no standard. I've been reading some stuff right now, and I just can't think of. My mind is going right now, but there is no standard even for police officers when it comes to use of force, other than just evasive language, just kind of general language.
Right.
And so it's just kind of up to not only each police municipality, but also each police officer to just kind of determine what's reasonable and those type of things. So like language, like one of the use of force laws, almost in every police department, there's something called that. Under that is the idea of force that is proportionate. But when you read the language of proportionate, one of the things, like Chicago has it in theirs, and their proportionality is that the police officer can use force greater than the force used against them, and that's considered proportional.
Yeah.
If he or she so deems that they're in danger, or not only or the environment is in danger, right? So anything, it don't even have to be just as that, So these kind of general laws. And I'll come back to this when I wrap up. I just want to ask some concluding stuff, but just to answer Ray's question, these are some things that can actually perpetuate a social shaking up, or in this case, in regard. So I just want to throw that one out there.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Yeah, so
The right to vote.
my wife brought up the fact that we got the right to vote. Yeah.
Yeah. Pastor Johnson.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was gonna say also, those are big trials, but I also think that the smaller trials can snowball into big effects too, like the Breonna Taylor trial.
Okay.
And Laquan McDonald or Rodney King trial. So some of those, when the verdicts are not favorable, it kind of sometimes what I think the reason why that happens, and if you watch Law and Order, they try to reference similar cases where people got off, right? So if something happened in the past that was, if you found facts that this is another case that came out the same way or similar kind of evidence, you're trying to get the same outcome. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, some of those small trials, that's why I think it's, we have so many protests that come out, because we know historically they become unfavorable for us, right? Police get off. So I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, you all get it. These people have been given authority by God, and the very things that they're supposed to be doing, they're doing the opposite in a lot of cases. And so when that happens, know that when it happens, that God is judging them, that there's another reality going on.
Right.
The fact that they're doing that means that God is judging them. Right? And that here's the thing, that Jesus is going to make all things right.
Right.
Going to make all things right. And I want to ask all of you, because the Psalms have been teaching us how to pray. So from this psalm, what we've learned, what would be, and all of us, I want all of us to chime in, what would be a prayer that we could derive out of this? That we could develop from this?
Right.
I would ask God to touch the hearts of those who are in power, to allow them to see who really holds the power and what their role in it, and to understand what their role and what they've been given is. That they are not the absolute authority, that the absolute authority is God. Like you say, the very God who gave them the power to do what they think they're doing.
Oh,
excellent. Anybody else?
No, go ahead.
I've turned Psalms 91 into a prayer. That's just,
okay.
I'm just saying.
Okay. Well, how can, Sister Coney, how can you use what we've learned today to pray?
Well, a thousand may fall at your side and 10,000 on the other side, but it won't come nigh thee. I know that's more or less like a family thing.
Okay.
But I use Psalm 91 for everything.
Okay.
I would probably use verses 3 and 4 as they are.
Okay. Okay.
Ask God to give justice to the weak and the fatherless.
Yeah.
To maintain the right of the afflicted and the destitute, and most importantly, rescue the weak and the needy. Deliver them from the hand of the wicked.
My God.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. In some cases, the wicked is the judges,
right?
And the rulers and the leaders, and
Pastor, I agree with Sister Dean, but I would also say I'll be praying for the judges to have their heart on the Bible, to uphold the truth, that nothing but the truth. So help them, God. They often give the person that's going to the stand to touch the Bible, and it make that kind of,
maybe they should
bring
do the
out
same
the truth
thing
to them. But they get to, they don't have the Bible, they spiking the gavel.
Yeah, that's very good. That's very good.
Yeah. And I would also add that, y'all know me, so I'm gonna pray that God would remove them.
Yeah.
Okay. The unjust judges. Okay.
Move them down. Let them die in their sleep. Anything. You judge the judges, Lord. You judge the judges.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, Pastor Johnson, you preached on something I thought for many years of saying I felt like some judges think they above God because when we have somebody testify, they're like, well, you bound by God, right? To swear, you got to swear in.
Yeah.
Now I get to judges like, no, you should be, you got to swear in. I mean, you give one ceremony, but not to the people, but you got to swear into God while you judging.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna tell you what the judge did to me. When I was first charged, and I went before the judge, and I had bail. And he let me out on bail. He told me that he was gonna, since you go ahead, and I'm gonna give you a stay execution for a couple of months, get your stuff together, and I'm gonna end up giving you 10 years. So I did that. And then when I went before him to start my sentence, he gave me 12 years. He changed it just because he could.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's all I got, Pastor.
Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord.
Excellent. Listen, y'all know I can't, not a message like this, I can't not say anything. Y'all know this is where I stretch out.
Okay.
But that is not to say that, but Rev has did an excellent job, so we appreciate that. I want to just I want to synthesize couple things that he said, and we'll be gone. So it'll take about 4 or 5 minutes. So one of the things that Rev brought out is I think it's a great connection between order and how God has designed creation, right? And the when injustice happens, how that disrupts that order that God has that put in place.
Yeah.
Let me ask y'all a question as a way of kind of helping y'all think through another layer of this. There seems to be an assumption here that how God has set up in regards to order is not the default way of how people judge.
Mm-hmm.
So he has to tell them that their purpose, as Rev has shown, is to give justice to the weak and the fatherless, to maintain the right of the afflicted and the destitute, to rescue the weak, to deliver them from the hand of the wicked. In other words, that the whole reason why I even have to put judges in place is because injustice will naturally take its order.
Yeah.
Right? If there were not judges, the weak and the fatherless would naturally be afflicted, would be in a place of needing rescue, it would automatically take place. So judges are put in place so that does not take place.
Mm-hmm.
Which then assumes that just because of our sin or whatever, we would naturally have these power dynamics. We would naturally have these where the weak are taken advantage of, exploited, et cetera, et cetera. Now, here's my question. Here's my point. That then suggests that the very presence of a judicial system assumes that there is injustice and all that kind of stuff like that, and that that there are these things that need to be rectified. In America, I don't think that's our starting point.
Mm.
Our starting point is not that there are all these injustices in the world that needs to be rectified.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? What is it that America has told itself that causes us not to think that's the default? What does America tell ourselves? Yeah, number one, that we are a Christian nation.
Yep.
And because we are a Christian nation, there's a level of quote unquote that it's already right. What else have we told ourselves?
We're the greatest nation.
Yeah, so this exceptionalism, right? That's called exceptionalism, Sister Johnson, right? Is that we told ourselves that we are exceptional, that there's none like us, and when we do all things right.
Right.
And even when we're not doing things right, I'm reading a book. I told Sis Coleman, and I says every pastor need a great librarian. We need a librarian because she keeps me up on all the good stuff I need to read. So I'm diving into some stuff about America as a caste system, but it's this exceptionalism, and it's this idea, and America's been able to this great evil, where even in the midst of the world's terrible, worst injustices, we've still been able to kind of maintain being the moral whatever on the world stage.
Yeah.
Just in the midst of slavery, in the midst of lynching, in the midst of all that, right? And see, the other thing is this, is that part of it is this, along with what you all have said about Christianity, exceptionalism, but watch this, the land of the free. We could promote that while having slaves.
Right.
Wow.
That is America's great hypocrisy.
Yeah.
And so what happens then is that we then tend to look at our judicial systems as inherently being just, as inherently being right, as inherently being equitable.
Yeah.
But the reality is, it is far from it.
Yeah.
Amen.
I mean, a book I'm almost finished with. I'm reading too many books right now.
Go ahead.
But Crook County just lays that up, just opens up just how intrinsic this injustice is, because it is built off of a system where the weak, the fatherless, the afflicted, and the destitute are blamed for being there.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
Where Psalm 82 says, listen, it is your responsibility to defend the weak, to maintain the right of the afflicted,
Right.
and the destitute. In America, the afflicted, the weak have to prove why they are worthy of being defended.
Yeah.
You have to prove that you deserve justice.
Yeah.
Yes.
And those in power and those with privilege and those with resources are just granted it and assumed it.
Right.
So you got that dynamic. And part of what Rev brings out also too, as he starts talking about even stuff like with the transgender laws and all these other stuff, is that we have to constantly remind ourselves what's right legally is not always right biblically, or what's right in God's eyes.
Right.
And it's easier for us. It's easy for us to maybe because we just have neglected talking about this for so long on a big scale. It's easy for us to identify things like marriage things and stuff like this. But I'm also glad. That's why I'm glad, right, Rev, asked you what are some of the cases, because it's easy to identify the marriage and the abortion stuff and all which needs to be identified. But then some of the more subtle things, like I just finished writing an article to be submitted to a journal, and so you all got like the initial parts of it, but I went and beefed it back up and made it more academic. And so one of the things as I'm in this article, about the right to bear arms, y'all read that one about should Black Christians embrace this more of taking up arms, and Matthew flag is not about being subjected to all type of violence, but only violence in regards to my faith. Right? Y'all remember that article that I shared with y'all? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Eternity of the Chief is about being persecuted for faith, not being persecuted for my race. Right.
Yeah.
And one of the things that so as I'm going through, I'm talking about MLK. You know, I think there was no other way for him to do it than the way he did it in his time. But we have, I think, have immortalized that, and in a sense that they're also, you know, that approach and that some of that is putting deeper restraints on us than the Bible itself puts on us. But I also say this, I talk about how just because of the context, it was so polarizing, right? They all, Malcolm X and all these others, they taking shots at King, right? So, and so he in some ways, he's kind of restrained by the political nature of his time to kind of go to an extreme, because they're going in some ways it's kind of to an extreme. So he has to kind of counteract that in some ways. But I talk about, and I use this, I talk about interestingly, so Malcolm, everybody know that Malcolm was a major, you know, conversation partner with MLK. And Malcolm says, hey, I'm ready to be in his article, Bullets or Ballots, in his speech, Bullets or Ballots. You know, he said, I'll be nonviolent. I'm ready to be nonviolent. But if you be nonviolent, if you are violent towards me, he says, well, I'm gonna be violent towards you, and I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go crazy. This is what Malcolm says. But this in the article, I said this though. I say because I know people want to eat. We want to try to throw Malcolm under the bus. But I said though, and I drew a parallel between what Malcolm says and what I just told you about the use of force. I says, yeah, although we may dismiss this as this is not the right perspective that Malcolm has, I'm not agreeing with it. I'm just saying that I'm not necessarily agreeing or disagreeing. I'm just saying that a lot of will say, hey, this is wrong with violence. But the thing is this, so we denigrated it with Malcolm, but then that's the very logic of the police use of force. It's the very logic, right? Malcolm says, I'm not going to be violent to you, but you be violent with me. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go crazy.
Right. Okay.
Right. But that's exact. If I'm just talking about the injustice. So we denigrated with Malcolm and then give police the exact same thing, which says that proportionality, it means that if I'm hitting you, you can pull a gun. You don't have to match aggression with aggression. You can raise the level up.
Yeah.
The same thing. And when we when we allow that type of thing, those type of hypocrisies, and so then what's the difference? What's the distinction? What makes one okay and one not? Obviously, it's a matter of who's the victim or who's being the object of aggression. Right. So when Black folks and minorities are the object of police aggression, it's okay. There's a bishop in Latin America, Oscar Romero, who talks about this as institutionalized violence, and talk about institutional violence is the worst type of violence because it's government sanctioned violence, and that violence breeds other types of violence. Yeah. It's in that context, and I think that Rev is absolutely correct. We need to walk away from this saying, how can I pray this? How can I pray for this? How can I pray this psalm? And then also looking and having confidence in the eschatology of the psalm, that there is an alternative reality. Yeah. Man. The deeper we get into this, the deeper we realize how messed up it is. But when we get back to praying these psalms and believing the theology of the psalms, I would argue, and for the most part, we have not prayed for it because we have sometimes have been deceived into thinking that somehow we just have to accept the injustices of these institutional injustices as if they're just. Yeah. So we end up arguing. We argue. This is the problem too, right? Is that the power, those who in power are able to push their agenda, and we start saying, well, yeah, you know what, they are right. Yeah. You know what? If they would just, if we would just follow directions, we wouldn't get killed.
Right.
Which is far from the truth. Right? we start buying into their logic. And so then once you buy into the logic, you can't critique it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't hold it up to the light from scripture and say, well, wait a minute now. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
According to Psalm 82. And so I think these Psalms are important because it needs to be part of our diet.
Yeah.
We can talk about loving our neighbor. That needs to be part of our diet. It needs to be part of our diet for sure. Praying for our enemies, that needs to be part of our diet. But Psalm 82 also needs to be part of our diet.
That's right.
All right. All right.
Right.
We look into the fact that there is an alternate reality. Never. See, watch this. Because once we start, we don't have a balanced diet, right? We start getting stuff off the plate.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have an obscure perspective of reality.
Excellent.
And you start thinking, and you can't see. You can't see a need for an alternate reality that God is doing, because we bought into the reality as it's been presented to us.
Yeah.
That's all. That's it. That's it.
Amen.
Thank you for helping me out.
Well, I think you did your thing, but you just know I can't. Not this one. This is one of those.